So I was just listening to a video. I guess the dude's focus of his channel is something about narcissism. He's talking about like divorce court, blah blah, narcissism, da da da. Okay, so here's the bottom line. If you are going to leave your narcissist and you have children, you better have extremely concrete proof that he's abusing specifically the children to a level grave enough that he will not be allowed any unsupervised visits with the children, or he or she will ruin the children. He will psychologically, emotionally, spiritually destroy your children to get back at you, of course. He or she. So that's something that I don't really hear people being very adamant about in the videos that cover this. They're just like, make sure you get proof of what specifically. Like, you need some very specific proof of the yelling, the screaming, the throwing shit in front of the children, at the children, them hitting the children in the background screaming while they're doing this crazy shit is very important. And do you know how hard that is to actually get? Because when they're doing their freakouts, they're focused on the other person in the relationship very specifically, and it's really hard to pick up your phone and hit record when that's happening. I don't understand how in a world full of this nightmare shit, there's not already a freaking like app that picks up some sort of a cue, like you have a cue word that you yell out or something, like stop, and then the shit starts recording automatically or something. How's that not a thing with all the technology? If I knew how to invent shit, that should be an invention. If you don't have concrete, like full-blown evidence of very specific harm targeted to the children themselves, the mentally ill people in the court system will continue to allow this abuser to have access to your children, and they will use the opportunity to totally destroy the psychology of your children, mentally, physically abuse them as well when that's allowed to slide. And that's the most frightening thing for a person in abuse. Like, we're not necessarily even trying to escape it for us. We're trying to leave it and escape it so that we don't teach our children this, to be abusers and to be abused. And when we don't even realize what's the situation and what we really need in order to truly protect our children from this, and then we leave, or we, do whatever happens and they leave, we're fucked. We don't have that proof. We're done for. Our children are destroyed, and there's no point in you even birthing them, because all they're going to do is turn into them to abuse. Like, we've just made more abusers onto the earth, and that's not what many of us wanted to do. So it's really important that if you're gonna decide to leave, that you be extremely prepared. What happens to many of us is we end up deciding we're not gonna leave, right? We're gonna be with this person with this disorder, but we don't have the tools knowing how to do that so that we don't get burnt out, so we don't get destroyed in the process of staying with them and being with them. And psychopath ones, the better you get at not reacting to their crazy making, the more pushy and adamant they'll get with their crazy making. They'll get more violent and scary. And so if we don't know how to manage those situations, then we're going to be in trouble and we're going to get really sick, and that it's going to take us out. And so what we need to do, if we're going to decide to stay, is we need to, someone's got a killer stereo system in one of these cars around me. We need to figure out and learn how to manage the situation, including ourselves, in such a way to where we can make it through. Intact. At least stay with these people until the children are adults is really ideally the best thing, and particularly and especially when they're going to continue to have access to the children. So if you just can't, if you've never, like if your particular variety of narc isn't violent, and you're not able to ever get enough evidence because it doesn't exist, then you have to stay. You have to stay to protect your children, because they will use any time that you're not there to protect your children to manipulate them in one way or another. It's going to mess with their head in really terrible ways, really destructive ways, really detrimental ways. And that can be like over spoiling them, getting them bigger, better things than what you can get them, or getting them bigger, better things than what you're willing to get them. Because we know that our children, a spoiled child is a rotten child, is a child that becomes something that we don't want on this planet. You know, spoiling makes narcissists, right? And then abusing them can sometimes make them as well. But I know a lot of people that were abused, physically hit and beat up and terrible stuff, and they're really decent human beings, actually. So I'm, come to the conclusion that a lot of these narcissists were just very extremely spoiled. So in the event that you have one that's just has outbursts, the psychological games, all this kind of stuff, that might not be enough, depending on, I guess, the particular people involved, to get them to see that would be damaging to the children psychologically. It doesn't appear that, oh, chingo, that was a park spot. Well, it doesn't park all the way down here. So those people were in my way. Oh, I'm trying to park. For whatever bizarro reason, unless someone's punching you in your face, then people don't realize it's still abuse and it's still damaging. How can we be in 2021 and not realize this really extremely obvious and simple stuff? I haven't the slightest clue. I don't understand how this isn't like a thing that's taken very extremely seriously. But it's not. Like, people will kill themselves just over psychological torment. So a person that psychologically torments someone to the point of killing themselves should be charged with murder. Spoiling children and alienating them from their other parent by doing that, because these children that are getting, all this stuff will even protect a parent who's physically abusing, because they want to continue to get this stuff. How is that not like a serious crime that would make it so a parent would not be allowed to have access to children unsupervised? Is beyond my mind comprehension. If I ran the world, these people that allow this, that are supposed to be there to protect us, but that are allowing it, should also be held accountable. And you know, with patience and enough of this stuff going on, maybe we can get to a point where, you know, lawyers and judges and these evaluators, etc., are held accountable for not recognizing these very serious and detrimental things, because our children are growing up into adults who are extremely damaged and end up being drug addicted. Terrible, terrible stuff. Like, I have a sister who, she just got screwed over so bad, and then she gave up. She did give up. And the dude, oh my God, what a horrible human being. Like, he lived off of her when they were married. She was the sole breadwinner. And then he just lied and nightmare stuff and whatever, and ended up with the kids. And then the crazy shit happened to her that, like, I think she had given a retainer to a lawyer, and the dude ends up dying or some crazy thing. And then that was already borrowed money. And then she was just a mess, because she bought into the system of, like, drug yourself instead of take care of yourself, and, you know, feed yourself this trash food that's, like, totally nutritionally depleted, etc. So, you know, she was just, you know, had nothing to give with all these things that already were stacked against her. So she quit, she gave up, and she didn't end up fighting after a certain point. But those poor kids of hers that were raised by this nightmare dude are so messed up. Like, they really struggle. Like, drug addiction and psychological problems, like, super sad and horrible. And we sat there and watched this unfold in devastation, and we couldn't do anything because we didn't have money, and we didn't know what to do without them, paying the lawyers to help us at that time. So it's really important to know what to do to be able to stay with these people once we screw up. Then guess what? You don't get to have, like, your fantasy life of dream come true of somebody that loves you, that's healthy and normal anymore. But you can love yourself, and you can do things for yourself. You just have to know how to manipulate them. And I'm not talking about manipulating them the way they manipulate you, like you manipulating them to evil stuff like they do, but manipulate them so that you can go do the things you need to do to take care of yourself. And then you need to actually do those things. You need to make the effort and do it. You need to have breaks from these people. Like, a narcissist, like a little kid, they constantly are needing you. It's a constant drama, and if they don't get what they want, they're going to scream, and they're going to throw things and have major tantrums. And it's exhausting. You need breaks from kids, and you need breaks from your narcissist. And again, if they're these violent ones, you do your diligence and you get your videos, you get your very concretely obvious videos of what's going on, and you get the fuck away from them and divorce them. Because if you don't, you're gonna end up dead, like Gabby Petito. We're Gabby Petito, and we don't want to end up dead. We don't want our kids to end up dead. So the only thing that a court system listens to is really concrete proof. They fall for these con artist actors very extremely easily, just like all the other people in the population. There's really nothing special about them, and nothing there of them that makes them more mature, more evolved in maturity, and or even intelligence. They just happen to be really good at memorizing stuff and to sticking to the schooling that they had to go through to get to where they're at. But that doesn't mean intelligent, it doesn't mean wise, it doesn't mean mature, and it doesn't mean they don't have just as much drama and bullshit going on in their own personal lives than what you got going on in yours. Oh my God, like, it's sad, because you would think that if somebody's, gone all the way to the judge position, that they would have mastered life in these other areas as well, but they have not. So that's important. Like, please do not stay in a full on your life is in danger abuse. And then the psychological abuse that they do doesn't have to actually hurt us. It doesn't have to actually sting. You know what I mean? Like, it can maybe be annoying and exhausting just because so much of it. But even that, like, it's all a matter of perspective. That aspect of it really is a matter of perspective. How we look at it is how we're reacting to it, is how we're experiencing it, and how it's affecting us. Like, literally, we can be in such a position of zen that we can be in the middle of a war zone and not be letting, and not have it be putting us into fight and flight or fight and freeze or whatever, all the variety of reactions we get when it comes to how we react to those things. Those stress is relative. What can stress one person doesn't necessarily stress another. And so we can train ourselves to be like the others that don't get so stressed about it. And no excuses. So yeah, it's hard because our brains are like a computer, literally, just way more sophisticated, more amazing. But what our brains are is a programmed machine. And yes, there's more to it, and that's why we are able to change, grow, and shift, and reprogram it. But it takes an enormous amount of determination, effort, and more determination than effort. Okay, it takes both. It just takes both. So what basically has to actually happen is you have to clean the motherboard, completely wipe it clean. Like, the way we're looking at X, Y, and Z, we're not going to look at it that way anymore. We're just wiping it. We're wiping it. And then we go in and put in there what we'd rather, what better serves us, a different and better perspective. And how we do that, just the basic of it, is we learn to tell ourselves no to things that don't serve us, that nope. You actually have to think of your brain, and it actually is a separate being or entity or thing from you. You own your brain. Your brain is your property. It is your computer. And you get to tell it what belongs there and what does not belong there. And the only thing that trips us up is when we lose focus, when we're not mindful. Then we can go back to you can reset it to the original setting, And that's why you see people repeating patterns from childhood and so forth that aren't even serving them. But it's just because that's the set program, and you're always going to go back to that as a default program when you're not paying attention. And you kind of do have to pay attention to every single thought, to every single, more than every thought, is the way every single thought makes you feel, the way every perspective makes you feel, the way every belief makes you feel. The way you're looking at it, feeling, believing, etc., then that's where your cue is that this one needs some work. This is where we need to change the way we're looking at this one. And how can we look at it differently so it becomes a better feeling thing than the way we're looking at it now that's making us feel bad? Because it's those bad feelings that exhaust us, right? And then it's us not doing our diligence. We're not doing our diligence in rest. So they're like a baby. You got to rest when they rest, right? You got to rest when they're working. You got to rest when you have the opportunity. We're not doing our diligence, and this one's complicated because we're told that diets are healthy for us that are not. But we have to eat very high superfood diets that build our nervous system and that help us keep a calm and cool demeanor. So doing our diligence in all these various areas, it makes it a lot more pleasant to be able to deal with our narcissist and stay with the narcissist, at least until our children can grow up. Because they're going to use our children to hurt us, and that's what they're going to do. And they're going to make themselves look like they're innocent victims, that you're the bad guy, all this mentally ill, crazy, not true stuff. And, you know, if you're just an alive human being, you can disprove everything they're saying to the court, but you cannot necessarily convince your children of stuff. Because they're not making decisions based on facts and logic. They're making decisions based on who's giving me more freedom, who's giving me more crap. So they don't really care what's honest, true, and fair. They care what's getting them more of the crap they want. So that's kind of creepy and sucks, because we want our children to be moral and good, but apparently it looks like we have to teach our children how to be moral and good. And that's something they have to choose to value throughout their life. And hopefully they get to the point where they realize that, you know, being a kind and loving and good and honest person is more important than stuff. But we can't really force it on them, especially when they have a narcissistic or otherwise personality disorder person in their life that appears to be having a great old time, you know, buying all this stuff, and look at their life, they have a great life, you know. And those of us that have decided that being kind, loving, and a healthy person, so we're not going to kill ourselves for money and stuff, well, that might not look so glamorous to them, right? So they're not going to necessarily choose our way right away. And they might not ever do it. They might end up destroying themselves, killing themselves to buy crap, and kissing evil people's butts so that those people buy them crap. That might be the route they choose for the rest of their lives. And we don't really get to say, because ultimately our children are not ours. They are their own property. They're their own being, and they get to decide what they want to be. So we lose a lot of control over all of those factors when we leave the personality disordered person, because they're not mentally well, and they're going to do whatever it takes to punish you and hurt you. And going through your kids to do that is the perfect, easy access way to do that. So what I'm trying to do with these videos is show you how to be able to manage and handle these people so that it doesn't take you down. But I certainly encourage, leaving and having a redo, so long as you do your diligence, honestly. These poor people are mentally tormented, and they never ever stop, as you know. So do your diligence, get concrete proof, and leave, or learn how to be with them in a peaceful and loving manner so everyone can enjoy the life as most complete as humanly possible. Please and thank you.